Welcome to my presentation. You are with me, Andrew Cobby. This is a continuation of crop husbandry practices, and we're on this subtopic, which is planting groundnuts. So stay with me throughout this presentation. So we're going to start with seedbed preparation. So when you are to plant groundnuts, you have to prepare the soil to medium tilth. So medium tilth, it means the tilth or the size of the soil particles, they have to match with the size of the groundnut seeds. That's why the land, it has to be prepared to medium tilth. So time of sowing, we have to plant as early as possible, just as any other crop, plant as early as possible. But in areas with long wet, in areas with long wet seasons, you have to delay in sowing so that harvesting coincide with dry weather to minimize losses of crops. So the other areas, they have got long wet season. So in such areas, you have to delay in planting so that harvesting should be done during dry season to avoid crop losses. So sowing. So when sowing, the seeds should be sown 5 to 10 centimeters deep. So that's the depth of sowing the groundnuts. So it's 5 to 10 centimeters deep. So let's look at the spacing of groundnuts. So spacing has an important effect on prevalence of groundnuts rosette disease. So a viral disease transmitted by aphids. So that rosette disease is a viral disease that is transmitted by aphids. So in close spacing with uh, complete soil cover, aphids are discouraged from landing and hence low rosette instead. So if you plant the crops or the groundnuts close to each other, uh, the groundnuts will cover the soil. Therefore, the aphids are discouraged from landing on the soil, and the incidence of rosette disease is reduced. But if you plant widely with uncovered soil, aphids they land more, and hence the incidence of rosette disease will be high. So spacing has got an effect on groundnut rosette disease. So the recommended spacing for elect bunch variety is 45 to 60 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And for spreading variety, the spacing is 60 by 10 centimeters. So let's look at fertilizer and manure application. So you can apply 125 to 250 kgs per hectare of single phosphate for high yields. So single phosphate is applied to groundnuts just for high yields. Okay, then we've got farmyard manure. So farmyard manure can also be applied. So if you apply farmyard manure, usually it gives good results. So you can harvest a lot of groundnuts upon application of farmyard manure. So I've got this practical activity for you. So you have to select either maize or groundnuts to plant in the school garden. Then determine the number of seeds to be placed in a given area. Then calculate the plant population per unit area and the germination percentage. So let's now look at weed control. So when talk of a weed is a plant growing where it is not wanted. So any plant growing where it is not wanted, that plant is considered as a weed. So weeds have numerous or they have got so many negative effects on growing crops, and hence the farmer must keep the crop field free from weeds as much as possible. So this just a picture showing you the weeds. So you see I've got maize field and the other plants, and they are growing, they are growing in that field, and those plants are unwanted in that field. Therefore, those plants are considered as weeds. So I've got maize crops and I've got these other plants, and these plants are weeds. So let's now look at importance of weed control. So some of the benefits of controlling the weeds are as follows. So to reduce the competition for nutrients, water, right, with cultivated crops. So weeds may compete, or in other words, they use the same nutrients, they use the same water as well as the same light with the cultivated crops. So to reduce that competition, we have to control the weeds. Then to control pests and diseases which may be harbored by some weeds. So the other weeds such as Malawi, Malva negrita, negrita, uh, they act as the alternate host of cotton stainer. So the other weeds, they harbor or they keep the uh, pests and diseases. So if you control the weeds, it means you are also controlling the pests and diseases. Then to prevent contamination of farm produce, for example, you can prevent contamination by wild oats and Avena filter, which lower the quality of the weeds. So you control the weeds to prevent the contamination of the farm produce. And also to eliminate parasitic weeds such as witchweed, striga, that irritate farmers on the field, hence lowering the labor output. So there are other weeds, they are parasitic, others they also irritate the farmers. So you control these weeds so that to avoid lowering the labor output. Then also have to prevent blockage of irrigation channel by aquatic weeds. So there are other weeds, they grow in water. So these weeds, if you just leave them, it means they will block the uh, uh, irrigation channels. Then talk of to eliminate aeropathic weeds such as uh, witch weeds and this trigger. So these weeds, uh, the meaning of aeropathic is that they produce chemical compound that suppress or they inhibit the germination of the seeds. So to avoid these weeds, it means to avoid uh, suppression of germination of seeds. It means we have to control these aeropathic weeds. Then there's this another practical activity for you. You have to collect weeds samples and identify the negative effects of each on crop production. Collect the weeds samples and identify the negative effects of each weed on the crop production. So let's look at weed control. So weeds should be controlled at the right time. So the following are the guidelines that farmers may consider when controlling the weeds. So control the weeds as soon as they appear. So as soon as the weeds appear, as soon as the weeds show up, it means you have to control them. Remove the weeds in the field. So in legumes, weeding should be done before flowering. So this is because they are the leguminous crops are mainly self-pollinated, and hence disturbance of the planting during flowering may lead to low crop yields. So the weeding should be done before flowering to avoid disturbance of pollination. And also we should be controlled early before they set seeds and fruits, because after they set seeds and fruits, when you are controlling, it means the seeds may disperse and they may germinate. Therefore, after germinating, it means you have not controlled the weeds. So you have to control the weeds before they set seeds as well as the fruits. So weed control should be carried out when soil is moist to reduce instead of damage of the plants. So make sure that you control the weeds when the soil is moist. For example, if you are uprooting the weeds, if the soil is not moist, it means you can damage the crops by uprooting together with the plant roots. Therefore, you have to control the weeds when the soil is moist. And also we have to use the use of herbicides in weed control should be done when the weeds are actively growing. So if you are to use the chemicals, it means you have to use the chemicals when the weeds are actively growing, so that the chemicals should go in the system of the weeds, therefore the weeds will die. So the frequency of weeding, let's go to the frequency of weeding. So the frequency of weeding, that is how often weeding is done, depend on the following. So frequency of the weeding depend on the following. The first one is type of crop grown. So some crops are able to smoother weeds and hence may require only one weeding. So the other crops, they cover the soil, thereby smoothing the weeds. So you can only weed once. Then talk of climate of an area. So some climate factors favors fast growth of weeds, hence higher frequency of weeding. So there are other areas whereby their climate, they favor fast growth of weeds. It means you have to weed frequently. Then I've got type of weeds. So some weeds are fast growing and require regular weeding. So those weeds are growing fast, it means they require regular weeding than the weeds which do not grow fast. Then we have got soil fertility. So soil rich in nutrients support fast growth of weeds, therefore frequent weeding. Unlike if the soil is not fertile, it means you cannot weed frequently. So let's go to weeding groundnuts. So you have to clear weeds during early stages of growth. So weeding after flowering should be discouraged, or simply hand pull the weeds. Otherwise, it may interfere with the growth of the pegs. So after flowering, you don't have to do the weeding, or you just have to uproot the weeds. Otherwise, you will interfere with the growth of the pegs. So that's just a picture of a farmer, and he's showing a farmer is doing weeding in groundnuts. So just a picture for you to appreciate how weeding is done. So let's go to weeding in maize. So first weeding is done when maize is about 15 centimeters tall. So when it is about 15 centimeters tall, first weeding is done. Then subsequent weeding is carried out at appropriate interval until the maize plant establish good cover. So after 15 centimeters, after first weeding, subsequent weeding or next weeding can be done at appropriate interval up until the maize establishes good cover. Then hand weeding is done in small scale production. In large scale production, however, herbicides may be used because you cannot do hand weeding when you have got a very big field. Therefore, that's why they use herbicides, which are faster. Then there's a note. You have to note that all precautions should be observed when handling chemicals. You have to read the labels on the container for effective use of the chemicals. So this practical also activity for you. You have to practice weeding on the school garden using hose and herbicides. So thank you so much for being there. If you have got any questions, that's our WhatsApp number and that's our email. See you in my next video.